One day, right in the middle of the world's noise and all the masks pulled too tight, you realized your silence is not the depth of fear, it's the depth of power. They once circled you like a crowd, staring at a seed buried in dark soil, and laughed. So quiet, so weak. They didn't know a silent seed is also a seed exploding under the ground, splitting stone, pushing roots, snapping chains, and lifting the sun into a new season. Your endurance is not surrender, not losing, not hands letting go. It's hands gripping an invisible rope lowered from heaven. A divinely appointed moment, a scheduled test, a covenant signed with your breath, and the one who has seen the far edge of every night. You walked through rooms where rumors were poured like poison, through dinners where whispers took the shape of knives, through days serene on the surface, while your heart quietly bled. And you chose what the crowd doesn't understand and the weak never do. You chose to endure. Listen closely. Endurance is not volunteering to be a victim in their little game. Endurance is unplugging chaos so there's no power left to feed manipulation. When they insulted you, you seized the power not to react. When they scripted a scene, you seized the power not to play a supporting role. When they smeared your name, you seized the power not to lend them your voice to legitimize their lies. You were silent, not because you ran out of words, but because your words were being written in heaven's book. You were quiet not because you ran out of strength, but because your strength was being stored for the appointed hour. The world reads silence like a period. You and God know it's only a rest in the symphony, the breath between movements when the orchestra tunes, then detonates the hall with a theme more glorious than before. Here is the hidden nature of endurance. You carry what no one sees, the invisible orders on visible shoulders. You choose to stand at the door where the wind howls, so the fragile behind you aren't blown away. You choose to hear and not answer, to forgive and not announce it, to withdraw and not condemn. On nights heavy as stone, you put your head on faith that there is one who records every tremor in your heart, that there is a court not of this world where evidence is stored as light. Indelible, uncompressible, incorruptible, you endured pain without complaint, like a warrior guarding a sacred strategy. You shouldered burdens the world deemed invisible, but heaven counts as pure gold. You stayed loyal even when hung on the cross of betrayal, and that is what shook counterfeit thrones, thrones built out of pride and lies. Divine endurance doesn't come to make you callous. It brands the word holy into your bones. It is the daily flame that licks away the dross, so the core remains diamond hard, dignity, truth, mercy. It is the discipline of heaven's army, stepping back from the crowd to stride forward with the one who called your name. And though they mislabeled your quiet as lack of courage, you know, you refused their game. Because in that game, the winner sells the soul to the right crowd, pays with venom and calls it honesty, pays with spite and calls it justice. You did not. You chose the higher road, restraint over eruption, humility over display, love over retaliation. You set the blade down when you had every ability to pick it up. You cooled the fire when you had every reason to burn the room down. Why? Because heaven had already confirmed your story. Because in that deepest place of hush you heard, "Let me speak for you at the appointed time." And here is the declaration I lay on your life right now. You are the chosen one. Not by the crowd's vote, but by heaven's seal. Not by the count of likes, but by the count of times you chose holiness when no one was watching. Not by applause, but by the midnight hours you still kept your heart on beat. You're not lost, you're rerouted. Every circle that closed on earth was a gate that opened in heaven. Every time you bit your tongue, heaven wrote a line. Faith still stands. Every time your tears fell, heaven snapped a photograph. Integrity still shines. And when the world mistook your silence for running out of things to say, the higher realm gathered your unspoken words into an indictment no one can refute. That's why you remain at peace while storytellers lose sleep. That's why you stand tall while the blamers bow before their mirrors. The power of endurance is revealed not to injure but to restore what was broken. This matters. The unveiling you are about to witness isn't so you can avenge, but so heaven can restore. Divine justice does not humiliate. It lifts you to your rightful place and lets truth shine until tongues are tired of hurting themselves with lies. You won't sprint through the streets with a torch to burn a name. You will sit upon a quiet hill and let the sun rise behind you. Light knows where it must fall. They broadcast their words as if they were your destiny. Your destiny was never in their mouths. Your destiny is written by the one who invites you to walk through fire without burning, through deep waters without sinking, through mockery without losing the voice within. They overlooked your kindness, despised your silent sacrifices, mistook your humility for lack of strength. But you know, restraint isn't emptiness. Restraint is a chamber storing fire. When you did not respond, it wasn't because you had no arrows. It was because you refused to shoot on a cheap battlefield. When you did not defend yourself, it wasn't because you lacked evidence. It was because your evidence is sealed in heaven's archive, awaiting the day the seal breaks and a reality no one can deny is proclaimed, your elevation. There, every story they told evaporates like mist under the sun. There, every strike bends under a new gravity, the gravity of grace, pulling you into true orbit, true velocity, the true constellation you belong to. Listener, I name this truth over you. You were not silent out of cowardice. You were silent because you saw what they could not. That truth needs no noise to be true. Your divine endurance is the invisible hand rearranging the chessboard. The pieces that fancied themselves kings will discover they were pawns, while you, the disregarded, the pushed aside, return as the queen sweeping the board. With every move you do not crush, you clear the path. With every breath you do not retaliate, you raise the standard. With every quiet smile you do not hide, you testify, I am destined to win without shouting that I won. I promise you this, not empty air, but a seal, signed in your tears and loyalty. Regret is coming for the betrayer. Not because you wish it, but because the universe balances itself. When they laughed at your pain, they signed a contract whose fine print they now must read. Every malicious laugh returns as an echo in an empty room. When they despised your patience, they cast a vote against their own future. When they mistook your silence for not enough, they revealed the void in themselves. Now they will learn the lesson of silence the hard way. Silence at the edge, silence in sleepless nights, silence when life no longer answers them with applause, but with the face they've avoided too long. No, you are not the judge, but divine justice will set the pieces in order. Your part is to stand tall, breathe steady, and step forward with dignity, because your portion is ascension, not shadowboxing with ghosts. So from this moment, seal this on your chest. I am not weak. I am anointed with restraint. I am not losing. I am being lifted. I am not voiceless. I am being witnessed. My endurance is a gate, a refinery, a new map. I endured not to hurt anyone, but to restore what cracked. First my heart, then my family, then my bloodline. And when dawn arrives, it will not be loud. It will touch my forehead like a crown. Then the world will see a simple truth. I kept silent so heaven could speak, and heaven has spoken. They judged you with words thin as paper, yet thought them sharp enough to slice your destiny. They looked at your choices through frightened eyes and slapped on labels: naive, indecisive, dreamy. They whispered in kitchens and living rooms and group chats where hearts shrink and egos swell. They whispered about you like a comic book, while God was writing you in fire on granite. They forgot how many times you stood still and took the wind to your face, yet kept the door open, your hand open, your greeting open. They never counted the nights you paid with sleep, with time, with opportunity to shelter people who never knew gratitude. They mistook your humility for weakness, like a child looking at a quiet sea and thinking the waves have died until the tide returns and they learn. Calm is accumulation, quiet is preparation, silence is energy gathering for the surge. You chose restraint not because you couldn't speak, but because you knew words spoken in anger become cords around your own wrists. You chose humility not because you lacked weapons, but because the sharpest weapon in a wise hand is the right to set weapons down. You chose love over retaliation, not so they could keep trampling you, but so you wouldn't become a copy of what hurt you. The strange thing is, when you stood still, the storm inside them spun harder. When you refused to argue, their noise lost rhythm. When you didn't defend yourself, heaven drew back the curtain and lit the stage of truth upon your life. You kept quiet because you know a court exists that needs neither microphones, nor spotlights, nor the crowd's consent. You kept quiet because your story is already validated by a higher realm, heaven's record. Hear me. Heaven recorded everything. Every time you bit your tongue under insult, every time you passed on the chance to clap back to protect the peace of your home, every minute you stood guard over someone's sleep while your eyes burned, recorded. Every tear that fell in lonely nights, not one was wasted. Every broken prayer was gathered into a complete anthem before the throne of glory. Don't think no one saw, don't think justice sleeps. The day may be long, the night may be thick, but heaven's clock never misses a tick. You haven't been overlooked, you've been observed. You haven't been forgotten, you've been scheduled. In that process, your pain became wisdom like grapes pressed into aged wine. Pain is the process, wisdom is the aroma. Silent endurance rebuilt your soul. It removed the old bricks of fear, shame, approval, addiction, then laid a new foundation of integrity, self-respect, and a sound sense of belonging. Your tears became rich soil where wisdom sprouted, straight, green, stubborn. Every time you kept faith when nothing promised. Those were training sessions that honed the blade of your spirit, sharper, truer. Not a single beat of endurance was wasted. All of it was preparation and divine redirection. Some doors closed because if opened, you would have stepped into a glittering hallway that dead ends. Some people left because if they stayed, they would have forced you to live beneath their low ceiling. Endurance pushed you into heaven's waiting room. There you learned to breathe deep, to hear instruction, to discern good from right, to love without self-immolation. And when the hour comes, your rising will be quiet, yet full of power. No fireworks, no fanfare, no proclamations, only undeniable results, doors opening on time, meetings with the right people, footsteps landing on the right ground. You will be healed without a closing ceremony. You will be lifted without anyone needing to bow. Your wounds aren't trophies, they're a private map reminding you where not to return, and where dawn has set an appointment. You'll find yourself at a new altitude, tranquil as a morning lake, and you'll realize the strangest beauty. True power is not noisy. It's that silent gravity that makes all nonsense fall from your shoulders like dust. The wonder of endurance is that it turns you into a mirror. Those who seeded chaos will look into your calm and see the storm inside themselves. They'll be baffled that you no longer need their approval. They'll wobble when they realize you've left their right-wrong game. Your calm touches their pride deeper than your anger ever could. When they throw stones and you don't throw them back, their hands grow heavy. When they spin stories, yet your life keeps moving, green, blooming, they are forced to face the holes in their own hearts. That's when truth breaks through concrete. You need not prove a thing because your life has become evidence. Sound results, healthy relationships, wise decisions, orderly steps. These are testimonies more eloquent than any status post. Endurance creates a confrontation of energy and truth. You don't shout, but you have frequency. That frequency pushes back every falsehood like church bells thinning the fog at dawn. You don't debate, but you have evidence, not paperwork, but fruit. Fruit cannot be argued with. You have peace, and peace is truth's ally. Watch, the manipulator sleeps in suspicion, the truthful sleep on a pillow of peace. That difference needs no explanation. You simply live, and the way you live becomes the strongest defense of your name. Remember, when you choose restraint, you are not losing. You are choosing a higher battleground where their bullets cannot reach. When you choose humility, you're not lowering yourself. You are stepping onto the platform of grace. When you choose love over retaliation, you are not abandoning justice. You are returning justice to the only hands that wield it without error. Heaven's light is the blade. It exposes, heals, and restores order. In that order, you are restored in layers, mind first, then heart, then the seasons of your life. They will see it whether they want to or not. The one they belittled becomes the one they respect. Not because you frighten, but because your dignity makes others stand up straight. If you're listening, let me give you a simple, fierce rite. Inhale, exhale, and declare quietly, I'm not misunderstood. I am being elevated. I am not judged. I am being cleansed. I am not abandoned. I am remembered. Believe this. Heaven's records miss nothing. Everything you thought was a loss was actually an investment, and the return is due. When you realize you don't need to win words with words, you start to win life with life. And then you'll see, without drums, without display, reward season still walks in like dawn, gentle, certain, unstoppable. If this message is resonating, confirm this frequency of truth now. Hit like, hit subscribe so this bell can ring further, and comment 777 to seal your faith, because the agreement of light creates the atmosphere where miracles work. You are not alone. An army stands behind you, and its commander-in-chief has signed off. Move forward with the calm of one who knows they are being witnessed. Number 1, they mistook your golden heart for a doormat. They thought kindness invites refined cruelty, that you would always wipe the mud from their shoes with your own honor. But a golden heart isn't a mat, it's a forge. Gold becomes gold only by fire, and your fire has burned away the grime others left. Psychologically, manipulators read kindness as dependence. They hunt for weak boundaries to invade. But your kindness evolved into boundary wisdom, a sacred border traced by peace. You no longer open your door to chaos under the label of understanding, you open it to truth. Everything else may wait outside. You are a diamond, not rubber. You reflect light. You don't absorb trash. They regret it now because when they stepped on you like a mat, their feet met flame. And that flame tempered you harder, brighter, costlier. Number 2, they thought their noise could drown out your inner voice, but you've become a frequency their noise can't measure. Picture a pure radio signal humming in a sky full of static. The more static, the sharper the filter. Your inner life has grown a holy filter. Anything not tuned to truth is screened out before it touches your heart. At the spiritual level, frequency is invisible power. It decides who you meet, which doors open, which chances you notice. Envy can't hear the soundtrack of a mission. It only hears the buzz of ego. As your frequency rises, jealousy suffocates and leaves. Psychologically, you've stepped out of the external approval loop and into the heavenly validation loop. Your nervous system has been retuned. No more jolts at every insinuation. No more racing heart at every vague message. You know who calls your name, and it's not the crowd. They failed betting that their loudness would swallow you. They only taught you to listen deeper, and now your inner bell rings. Number 3, they used your silence as soil for darkness, but your silence turned into a sword of light that cleaves the fog. You've learned the art of intentional silence. Not passive, but precise, silent to observe, silent to discern, silent to act in season. Picture an archer so still the wind thinks he's asleep, yet when the arrow leaves the string, it goes straight through the bull's eye. Psychology calls this calm agency. You don't react to stimulus, you respond to mission. Betrayers live off triggers. They cast bait to control another's emotions. You refuse the bait, so they lose the switch. Spiritually, your silence lets angels rechart the strategy, guiding you out of the maze of arguments onto the boulevard of wisdom. As they spin, you stand like bedrock. As they throw up smoke, you light a lamp. That lamp harms no one. It only makes lovers of darkness uncomfortable. They regret it because now every step you take is wind-backed by peace. Number 4, they thought cutting you off would cut off your supply, but you are connected to the source. In metaphor, they shut a faucet and assumed the river would dry up. You were never the faucet. You're the aquifer. Psychologically, they tried to isolate you to control the narrative, but isolation became incubation. Tall trees don't mature in the square, they root in deep forests. You used solitude to hone skills, purify motives, adjust your heading. Spiritually, man's disconnection opened heaven's connection. Private line, wide bandwidth, no static. So new resources, ideas, and allies began finding you like bees find flowers. They regret it when the hand pulled away. Heaven's hand landed when they locked a door. Heaven swung a gate. You stopped, begging for a seat. You built a table. Number 5, they wagered the weight would break your back, but the weight grew muscles in your soul. Think of a lifter, the load stays the same, technique changes, and muscle is born from tiny tears. That is how you grew. Sleepless nights, hard decisions, moments you felt alone against the world rewired your inner strength. Psychology calls it post-traumatic growth. You didn't just recover, you unlocked deeper meaning. Spirit calls it sustaining grace. When your strength ended, heavens flowed. The result, your threshold is higher, your heart softer, your wisdom sharper. They failed trying to break you, they only made you flexible. And a flexible heart is the hardest to break. Number 6, they mocked your vision, yet vision made you a steward of legacy. In a world imprisoned in the present, vision is a telescope. Those who can't use it call it delusion. You see beyond today's quarrels and bigger than momentary egos. You choose timeless values, honor over hype, truth over temporary wins, legacy over performance. Psychology shows that people with clear vision delay gratification and act in alignment with their future self. Spirit affirms that true vision descends from above, guiding like a pillar of fire by night. Betrayers aren't winners. They're only in a hurry. They regret it when they see 5. You laid the foundation while they painted facades. When storms came, facades flew and foundations laughed. Number 7. They believed darkness beats light if darkness bands together. But light doesn't need a crowd to shine. Light only needs to be light. A single candle in a cavern breaks a ban older than centuries. You stopped counting how many stand with you. You started counting how many principles you stand with. Social psychology pressures people to compromise to keep their circle. You chose principles over circle, so heaven widened your circle to communities that love truth. Spirit calls this a holy realignment. When you crown truth, heaven seats you among those wearing the same crown. They regret it. They thought isolation makes you weak. Refinement made you strong. Number 8, they used your past sins as rope, but you turned sin into testimony of grace. You don't deny stains, you feed them to the fire. Psychologically, self-compassion lets the brain rewrite the story. Not I and my mistakes, but I have learned. Spiritually, true repentance is a springboard, not shackles. They regret it because they only knew how to weaponize your past to hold you back, while heaven used your past to launch you forward. Now each scar is a portal. It warns you off wrong roads and helps you lead others out of the woods. Number 9. They think defense makes innocence, but heavenly courts acquit by fruit. You stopped arguing and invested in fruit. The fruit of discipline is steadiness. The fruit of faith is peace. The fruit of kindness is faithful alms. Behavioral science shows repeated right action cements identity. Do right long enough and you become the one who does right. Spirit confirms, by their fruit you shall know them. There's nothing left to say when your garden is in season. They regret it. They chose argument. You chose planting. At harvest your silence thunders. Number 10, they thought tearing you down would suffocate your calling, but the stones they threw became your steps. Last image, a climber gathers stones thrown at him, stacks them into stairs, and rises to a place his throwers can't follow. Psychology names this reframing, turning obstacles into material. Spirit calls it holy reversal. What was meant for harm gets redeployed for your good. They failed at the root because they misjudged one thing. You don't live to be right, you live to be radiant. And once light shows up, it won't go back in the box. Carve these pillars deep like vows. They regret you are a diamond. They have failed. Each declaration is a hammer, breaking the mold that trapped you in victimhood. Each image is a door into new sky in your mind. Each analysis is a map out of psychological and spiritual snares. Each reaffirmation stakes a flag of sovereignty where you once feared to walk. This isn't cheap motivation, it's spiritual architecture. You are building a temple inside of dignity, order, and quiet glory. Now breathe and say softly, I don't need noise to be evidence. I don't need a crowd to be a witness. I only need faithfulness. Faithfulness is the shortest road to durable glory. As you go on, these pillars will carry you through the next valleys. They'll remind you every attack is the final exam before the degree is awarded. They'll remind you the betrayer is learning regret in their own silence while you are learning leadership in your own light. When people ask how you rose, you'll smile. I endured, not to stay, but to pass through. Time to speak the ultimate truth. Betrayers didn't lose you the day they turned their backs. They forfeited their own future the moment they mistook light for weakness. They believed a cutting phrase, a thoughtless decision, a performance for the crowd could lock you in the narrow box of their opinion. But light never lives in the box. Light lives in you. When someone tries to smother light, they don't extinguish you, they dim their own road. Here is the ultimate truth. Your endurance didn't just keep you alive, it shifted your essence to a frequency where lies have no deed, covert violence has no leverage, and manipulation reveals itself as farce. When you are silent in holy ways, they hear the echo of themselves. When you stand, the ground beneath them starts to sink. They regret, not because you avenged, but because life mailed back the invoices they signed. They failed, not in your eyes, but in their mirrors. And you are a diamond, not because they acknowledge it, but because the fire signed your name with unbreakable strength. Look back at your journey. From the first day you were misunderstood, you wore silence like armor, not a muzzle. You didn't ask permission to be noble. You chose nobility without witnesses. You didn't kneel to opinion, you knelt to truth. Layer by layer, pain shed like an old husk to reveal a fresh current. Loyalty, spiritual intelligence, eyes trained to see through schemes. You moved from victim to driver, from the one told to the one who writes, from the labeled to the definer. This is a transformation no stage can stage, the soul's silent migration from the lowlands of doubt to the highlands of conviction. You don't need an audience to be authorized. You have the sacred self, the eye rinsed by light. You don't need explanations to be innocent. You have fruit, gentle evidence impossible to counterfeit. Your endurance rewired the nervous system of faith, placing you on a trajectory where promise becomes schedule, no longer a fragile hope. There, your peace is no longer a mood. It's architecture, gravity, a field that holds all things in place. You used to ask, when will justice come? Justice arrived the moment you chose not to play God, when you sheathed your sword and let light do what light does. Divine justice tramples no one. It carries you so high that hands once reaching to pull you down can grasp only air. It doesn't teach them with pain you inflict. It teaches with emptiness they built. They thought they seized your story. In truth, they stole their own laughter, because no one laughs for long in a room where the inner lights are off. Their regret isn't loud, it drips, gnaws, and lectures them nightly that cheap roads always mail expensive bills. From afar, you do not look with glee. You look with mature Mercy, mercy with boundaries. You understand, those who hurt are hurting. But that mercy doesn't mean returning to the old table. It means you bless them with peace from the other bank while you cross golden fields of your mission. Hear your soul's breathing now, steady, slow, full. It's the breath of a person who stepped out of the approval vortex. It's the breath of a person who buried the impatient clock of ego and wears the precise clock of providence. No longer rushing to prove, you carefully sow. No longer panic to explain, you streamline your actions. And then you see, your peace begins to attract compatible people. They come not out of curiosity, but recognition. They don't arrive to siphon, they arrive to build. Relationships stop being stages for roles and become temples for truth. You broke the ancestral cycle of misunderstanding and violent silence. You laid a new cornerstone for your lineage, sacred order. From that stone, a wall of peace rises around your family. There, children learn to name feelings without shame. Adults learn to apologize on time instead of defending forever. Old curses, division, envy, toxic hush dissolve like mist as the sun rises in your house. Now frame regret properly. It's not your goal. It's truth's shadow in hearts that open too late. You don't steer shadows. You simply brighten the light. You don't wear their regret like a medal. You wear your peace like a crown. One thing is sure, regret is a sentence that lasts as long as a person refuses repentance. But repentance is an open door. Going through or not is their choice, not your assignment. Today, you hand back everything that isn't yours. Accusations, blame games, ropes that drain your energy. You cut the old cables to the swamp and plug into Grace's broadband. Then a simple, overwhelming truth appears. You rose without pushing anyone down. You won without needing a loser. You became radiant by heaven's blueprint, not the crowd's algorithm. Let us summarize the transformation without mercy for the lie. Yesterday's burdens are today's curriculum. Yesterday's salt tears are today's anointing oil. Yesterday's loneliness was a dark room, and now it's a studio. You step into reward season not by shouting, "It's time," but by the miraculous match between an interior ready and a destiny due. Delays accelerate not because you pound on doors harder, but because you became the kind of person doors open for. Blessings once blocked now flow like a spring struck at the source. Gentle, steady, durable. Reward arrives like dawn, no jolt, no overwhelm, just a clean light lying over your hair, your skin, your thoughts, your ways. Power now is holiness. Silence now is sacred. You no longer hide out of fear. You hide in truth to shine in the right place at the right hour. You are the chosen not by favoritism, but by responsibility. That title is not a hollow crown, it's a cross feather light when born with grace. Here is the deepest conclusion I set within you. Your peace is immovable, not because life stops storming, but because there is an ocean in you larger than any wind. This peace both attracts and protects. It attracts those who honor boundaries, love truth, and work quietly. It shields you from cheap invitations to instant validation, from arguments that only drain, from roots that aren't yours. From this peace, your vision clears. You can see the seasons, hear the tempo, know when to speak and when to keep still, when to lift someone and when to let them answer to life. From this peace, you live like a lighthouse at sea. You don't chase boats, but every serious ship finds its way by your beam. And finally, carve this into your bones so it echoes whenever you pass a mirror. You have risen, and all they have left is regret. Not to make you proud,
but to remind you where you belong. Not to harden you, but to help you give your heart a doorway with order. Not to separate you from the world, but to send you into it as living proof that divine endurance doesn't make people hard, it makes them softly strong. You are proof that fire can be both hot and clean, that a sword can be both sharp and healing. From today on, as you move, you will not ask, "What do people think of me?" You'll ask, "What does light want from me?" That answer will lead you valley to summit, slope to horizon, in heaven's order, within your peace. If your heart just flared, confirm it with one small act that travels far. Hit like, hit share to pass this torch to someone lost in the night. Hit subscribe to journey together as we raise our frequency. And comment 777 as a seal. I have stepped into unstealable peace. Let the armies of heaven hear our accord, not to oppose anyone, but to lift everyone willing. Keep standing firm, keep gentle, keep sharp. You are ready for the ending that is also the opening of a new life. Now comes the closing. No angry pounding, but the soft click of a lock as a long-timed gate swings open. What broke no longer haunts you, because divine justice doesn't use sledgehammers to repair a precision engine. Divine justice uses light to set every gear back in place. You don't need revenge to name justice. You need peace to recognize miracles. And the miracle is this: where you bled, you now bloom. Where you trembled, you now stand. Where you were quiet, a strange language now resounds. One only hearts that have walked through fire can speak. When you let go of the rope that drags the past back, you feel the higher hand pulling tomorrow in. Justice arrives like morning, not loud, not menacing, not waiting for your command. It comes on time, bathing everything in its true color. Peace replaces pain, truth replaces misunderstood silence, and forgiveness, yes, forgiveness, becomes the right of release. You send every emotional debt back to its owner and wipe the slate of your soul clean. Forgiveness doesn't legitimize wrong. It cuts the cord that tethered you to toxic ground. Forgiveness doesn't erase memory, it rinses memory free of venom. From here, your soul is light as dawn wind and firm as a temple's cornerstone. Something greater than you imagined is happening in your bloodline. For too long, simmering misunderstanding, hereditary divisions, and violent silence carved a gash between generations. But you, through divine endurance, became the surgeon's blade that separates tumor from body without killing the healthy part. Choosing truth over the family drama, you broke the curse of old tapes on repeat. Setting boundaries didn't build walls against loved ones. It fenced the garden of your soul so whoever enters knows the law of light. Children watch you and learn to name feelings without shame. Adults watch you and learn to take responsibility without endless excuses. The blood is cleansed not by spectacle, but by a straight, gentle, consistent life. You are the new key, not by incantation, but by the soft rustle of daily discipline. Speak truth, do right, keep your word, know when to stop. That's how a lineage is detoxed. Habit by habit, sentence by sentence, family meal by family meal, where gratitude is spoken from the heart. Then reward season slides in like silk sunlight across a mountaintop, gentle, certain, needing no announcement. You'll see long delays accelerate like traffic freed at a bottleneck. Blessings once stuck now flow like a well tapped at the source. You won't wave papers to call your name. Your name appears when timing aligns within a readiness. Opportunity won't scare you because you have become its equal. Open doors won't overwhelm because your feet learned to step lightly into palaces. Rewards need no fireworks, they come as quiet confirmations. An on-time email, a promising call, healthy collaborations, a calm account balance, unhurried time with real people. Endurance planted a new core in you. You're done begging for certification. You're ready for life to testify. From victim, you have unfolded into living witness, flesh, bone, and fruit. If anyone asks for proof, you'll smile and point to peace, because peace cannot be faked. Glory now replaces guilt like royal robes, wrapping a once torn body. The one ignored in the meeting is now invited to open the session. The one mocked at family gatherings is now the one they call for counsel. You have become the cornerstone, not to dominate, but to align. Your strength is no longer flexed muscle. Your strength is holiness. Speaking when needed, quiet when required. Forgiving without trembling, leaving when order demands. Your silence is now sacred, not escape, but territory where intuition hears the footfalls of the true, the good, the beautiful.
Whoever enters your space senses a new tempo, lean, clear, warm, equitable. You are the answer to an old prayer in your lineage. Send us one who can keep the fire without burning the house. This peace, remember it, is immovable. It did not arrive because the world gave up trying to break you. It arrived because there is a source in you larger than the storm. That peace is an invisible halo. It draws right-hearted, right-paced, right-spirited people and repels chaotic, clingy frequencies. It guards you from glittering roads that aren't yours, from sugary invitations with hollow cores, from debates that end in nothingness. From this peace, your vision reads like a daytime map. You know which peak to climb and which valley to rest in, which call to take and which message to ignore, whom to lift and who must learn. From this peace, you work like a lighthouse, standing in your station, beaming the right frequency, letting serious vessels find their way in high seas. And now, the final proclamation, the arrow, through the heart of every doubt. You have risen, and all they have left is regret. That sentence is not for vanity. It's to remind you of your place in the great symphony. You carry light, not hoard darkness. You scatter seed, not count thorns. You build tables, not beg for chairs. Let that line be your cadence, the way you open each morning. I rise by discipline, by grace, by truth. Let those who regret learn their lesson while I live mine. You pass through the city of temptation with eyes rinsed clear. You stroll the marketplace of noise with ears tuned. You stand in the bazaar of life with a heart like a temple, open to seekers of truth, closed to merchants of lies. If your spirit is nodding, here is your call to action, not to feed an algorithm, but to seal a covenant, like, if you choose, peace over noise. Share if you know someone who needs a hand out of the swamp of misunderstanding. Subscribe if you want to walk this path of rising frequency, solid discipline, and living fruit. And comment 777 as a signet. I have entered reward season. I accept the responsibility of light. I honor the power of divine endurance over my life. Do it not for me, but for you, so every small act today sends a loud signal upward. I am ready. Then close the device, lift your head, and live exactly what you declared. The world is not changed by speeches. It is changed by people who practice one truth until that truth shapes them. You have heard the call, walked through fire, learned the language of silence, and seen the miracle of dawn. From here, walk on as a warrior of light, fierce and gentle, sharp and tender, humble yet unbowed by lies. Let your life prove this. Endurance, does not shrink us. It fits us to the true size of destiny. See you on the next summits, where there is no noise, only the wind through victory flags planted in the rock of grace.